so we will go ahead and get started promptly on time. Heather, we would again like to say thank you very much for coming.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we appreciate that. We appreciate you taking time for application. Just quickly from an administrative perspective, so you have an idea of what to expect here. We have assembled about 13 questions that we'd like to get through. I'll kind of start out with the first question, and then we'll just kind of work around the table. The board will be asking questions. We do have a couple at the end that we want to make sure we hear from, so depending on the other ones, I'll be kind of keeping an informal eye on the clock. I'm not going to push for anything like that, so don't feel like that, but you know, do want to make sure we hear the last couple of questions. At any time, if you need to stop and take a drink of your water, or you have a question for us as we move through, this is to be a two-way communication between yourself and us, so feel free to stop us. So, also, I told everybody I'm going to just punch my clock so that I can kind of keep an eye on time, but again, want to just make sure we get as much information from you as you care to share with us. So, with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off with the first question. If you could please share with us several highlights from your career so far, as the first part of the question, and then your career goals in the future.
Sure. Most of my career has been spent in the area of curriculum and instruction and assessment. So most of the things that I could highlight for you revolve around data disaggregation, working with data to make informed decisions about instructional decisions, professional development leading towards better tools for teachers, being able to get to those higher order thinking skills and things of that nature. I've been very involved in Harvard's Project Zero research program where they do physical thinking or thinking routines, they're called. And so working with teachers to help them be better at their craft of teaching so that they can help our students find better success. I started out as a health and therapy schools coordinator for Gratiot Isabella County. In fact, Beaverton was one of my schools that I serviced. And in that role, did a lot of curriculum and assessment work with the state to write comprehensive health curriculum and make sure teachers were trained in that curriculum. Did a lot of work with parent groups because, as you can imagine, when you talk about health curriculum and health education, there are some very sensitive topics. And so making sure you get to support the parent groups and things of that nature was also part of my role. Also been involved in a lot of grant writing, both at the federal level and at the state level, both with the health and preschools, things, and with comprehensive school reform grants. One of the things I was able to do in my position as a high school principal at Aubrey was help my staff. We transitioned that community from a K-6, 7, 12 perspective, and they had a building bond, and so they built a middle school wing. That was the middle school, was and so we transitioned from a K-6, 7, 12 district to a K-5, 6, 8, 9, 12, traditional elementary, middle school, high school. And in doing that, it wasn't just working with the community, working with the students, because the 7th graders were no longer in the high school building, they were in their own middle school building, but it was also working with the staff, how do you meet the needs of middle school students and middle school learners. And so we were fortunate enough to be awarded a comprehensive school grant with the state, which is a 3-year continuation grant that we did an awful lot of professional development and an awful lot of resource development to be able to effectively do that. And so I've been able to work with those kinds of funding resources to do the things that general funds generally can't support. My most recent position at St. Charles, for 7 years I was a high school principal, and in that position, again with my strength area in curriculum and instruction, I started the program that we are, or the initiative that we are currently 3.5 years into, where we are currently writing standards-based instruction, our standards-based curriculum. All of our teachers, including our specialist teachers, are writing units that are standards-based so that we can do standards-based instruction, standards-based grading, standards-based assessment. Right now, we're culminating that with the development of curriculum maps. So at every grade level and every subject, we have a curriculum map that maps out all of the units, all the standards that are instructed, complete with the understanding by design type model where they have an essential question, and then everything, the activities and everything that they do revolve around the students answering assessments that are coming out. My job responsibilities this year have been in the area of assessment to try and get our staff ready for the Smarter Balance tests that are coming out in 2014. I also take a look at what's called the EPAS, the Explore, the Plan, the ACT, making sure our students are prepared for that ACT, and how can we help them from 8th grade all the way through in that preparation. So as you can see, I'm really very heavily invested in curriculum and instruction, growing teachers, growing opportunities, intervention opportunities for students, and then the assessment part, what does our data show us about our students' performance, where do we need to shore some things up, how are we doing in these areas, what decisions do we need to make based on what our data is telling us. As far as my future career goals, I've always, I could get on a soapbox and I have a philosophy about different positions in education and teachers, administrators, things of that nature. But one of the things that I've always known about myself as an administrator is a good fit is that I'm a very global thinker. When I was in the classroom, my classroom wasn't big enough for me. I was always concerned with what was going on in the building. As a building level administrator, my building wasn't big enough for me. I was always concerned about how what I was doing fit in with what the district was doing. I have worked at ISDs also and looked at a region-wide approach, but I tend to fit better into a local district because my family, my husband, and my 3 children and I fit into a community very well, and that's what we really like, is being a part of the community. It's very important to us. My children have always attended the school that I worked in because that was who we were. That community was part of who we were. So looking as a global thinker and as a global perspective and a global visionary person, looking at central office positions has been my goal for many years now, and the opportunity to move into superintendent positions seemed like the right fit for me, so that's why I'm here today.
Okay, great response. Thank you very much. Brent, number 2, please.
What makes our family and school district an attractive place for you and your family? Hold on, I think what makes our community?
There's the word.
I know you're not there.
That's what I get for trying to do it by memory.
One of the things that my husband grew up in Hemlock and I grew up in Carlton. One of the things that we know about ourselves is that we're small town folks. We don't fit very well into the big urban settings. I did work for the city of Saginaw for several years. And while I enjoyed my job and I very much liked working with students in all of the buildings, I never really felt like I belonged to that school community. When we lived in Hemlock before we had kids, it became very apparent to us that we really weren't a member of the community because we weren't connected to the school. That's not because we had kids, but it really went hand in hand that once we then became parents and we were connected to the schools, we had found our right fit. And we have very purposefully, over the careers that I've made and over the communities that we've lived in, looked for that strong, supportive community that is revolved around the schools, supports the schools, is connected to the schools because kids are my business. That's who I am. It's what I do. All of my off hours are spent with kids, little league coach and school or class advisor and all those kinds of things. And so the couple of times we've been able to come to Beaverton for scrimmages and things of that nature, I've always gotten to feel that this was a community that fit with my husband and I and what our family was like. And Mr. Ricky, the transplant from St. Charles, kind of confirmed that for me when he was so gracious to give me the tour. He said it's very much like St. Charles. And so the reason I'm very interested in Beaverton is it's very much like the community that my husband and I very much like the people.
Mr. Frey.
Regarding performance evaluations, obviously, according to our legislature, they now are much more important to the careers of the staff. So I'd like you to describe what you believe to be the superintendent's role in making sure that these performance evaluations are done fairly, equitably, and timely.
One of the things that I have held for a long time is believe that the principal's biggest job and most important job is evaluating his staff, or her staff. In fact, before I wasn't able to finish my dissertation, that was going to be the topic of my dissertation, was evaluation, staff evaluation and its connection to student success. And so as a superintendent, my role would be to make sure I'm supporting my principals and making sure that that primary job is getting done and it's getting done well, and that they have the whether that's talking about concerns that they have or providing them with access to professional development to be able to do a good job themselves, making sure that I monitor timelines to make sure that that things, observations and conferences with teachers are happening in a timely fashion. I think the role of a superintendent, first and foremost, is to support that with the principals, because that is their first and foremost job. And I know as a building principal myself, while it might be the most important job, many times it gets second billing because day-to-day operations and running the building has to come first. You can't let those fires burn. You have to put them out, kind of thing. And so in a small school district, one of the things that I think the superintendent can offer is support. You know, can I help you with evaluations? Can I do some observations? Can I provide some feedback to you and those kinds of things to help that building principal make sure that they get the job done?
So the next question we have is, as you're well aware, many school districts in Michigan are under serious financial stress due to the increase in state revenues and the declining enrollment. And now also the federal sequester, right? So how would you as superintendent deal with this annual, and I stress the annual part of it, right? Challenge of declining revenues and increasing costs.
Yeah. It seems like most of my 14 years as an administrator, I think 12 of those 14 years have been spent in cut mode. I have been involved in administrative team level decisions about where the cut's going to come from. If for nothing else other than declining enrollment, because you're graduating more than you're bringing in the incoming kindergarten class. When we went to the funding source of the state, where our major source of funding is determined by per pupil count, the number of students you bring into your district matters. And so first and foremost, one of the things you have to look at is if you're having declining enrollment, where's that coming from and why? And what, if anything, can you do about it? And how can you attract more students? I saw that you had closed the alternative program, but in my tour, I understand that it still exists, just not over in the other building. And that's a wonderful resource for students who don't necessarily, and alternative ed students are kind of near and dear to my heart, you don't necessarily fit into a traditional setting, but yet you still need an education. How can a school district provide those services so they don't lose their students? And so finding ways to increase revenue equates to, in the school these days, students in our buildings. So how can we do that? How can we find ways creatively out of the box to do that? The other thing we have to get very creative about thinking about out of the box is how do we spend our resources? You know, I noticed that the personnel for you is about 76, 77% expense. That's pretty good. That's in line with what you would expect. So what's happening with the other 24, 23% of our budget? I noticed that about 13% of your budget is considered purchase services, excuse me. You know, that seems a little bit high, but is it necessary? And are those areas that we can look at? How do we find the services that we need through the ISD or anywhere else in a collaborative fashion so that we can reduce costs? There are other incentive type things that the state is trying to do by way of bargaining and things of that nature. How can we take advantage of those as a school district? We really have no other option. We have to reduce our costs if our income is going down. We can't go out and raise our price. So how do we do that, and how do we think outside of the box to find those revenues and find those resources? Are there grant sources that can help fund some STEM education, for instance? You have technology and science and math. Are there some grant resources that we're not taking advantage of? And can that help shoulder the burden of some of our instructional costs or resource costs that are part of those 23%, 24% of our budget that, you know, really is the only area we have left to have wiggle room in?
Have you ever been chief negotiator in developing a salary contract?
Unfortunately, that's probably the only experience I don't have as a central office administrator or program administrator. I've been involved in the research that goes into contract negotiation. I've been involved as an administrative team in making recommendations to the negotiations team, but I have not directly sat at the table for negotiations, other than my own personal hire. That's important.
Yeah, that's important. Everybody needs one.
Yeah.
Thanks. Darren?
From your experience and perspective, how involved should a superintendent be in the school improvement process? And could you speak of the involvement in previous positions?
I think that the superintendent needs to be vitally involved. That is their ability to set a vision and set a direction for a district, working with their administrative team and the building level school improvement teams. The superintendent position is literally the buck stops here. And school improvement is what we're accountable for. Do we set realistic goals? Do we meet our goals on an annual basis? That is something that I think the Board of Education should hold the superintendent accountable for. So if the superintendent is not directly involved, then they're giving up a lot of ability to direct and to have an influence over the direction that the district goes, and of course the board's input. So as a superintendent, my role would be to guide and to direct that district level school improvement activity. And of course the district level then has implications and arms into all of the building levels, so needing to be aware of and be involved in to the level needed, what's going on at each of the building levels. My personal involvement in school improvement has been both at a school level and in the strategic planning, because school improvement is really strategic planning for schools. And I've been involved as a consultant for strategic planning in other areas. And school improvement really revolves around making sure that you're communicating and listening to what the needs of the district, the community, the state is telling us we have to do, the targets that we have to set. I noticed in looking at your data, you've met about half of your targets for this year, and you've exceeded about half of them, and you've not met about 3 or 4 of them. So that needs to be a conversation at the school improvement team level about, okay, here's where we're at, here's what we did, here's what we didn't do, let's take stock of what we need to do in setting our goals for next year so we can make sure we meet those goals. And how are we going to do that? And then the hard work then comes in okay, how are we going to do that and making those kinds of decisions. So when you facilitate, and I facilitated school improvement at a district level, both as a district coordinator in East Jordan and now here in St. Charles, what you're doing is really facilitating that conversation at the table with a lot of different players and their perspectives from what they bring and what their needs are and what they want to see happen.
Sure. Just to follow up on that one, how do you see the flow of ideas in the school improvement process? Top directed, bottom directed, something in the middle?
My style of leadership is very much participatory. I have great ideas and I have great vision, but if I'm the one from the mountain telling you what you need to do, it'll never get done. And I have found over my career that many times if I continue to enter into conversation and collaborate with others, I'm not the only one that has great ideas. There are also some other really great ideas out there, and the synergy that happens in those conversations can sometimes be very, very powerful. And there have been times when I have really thought that the idea I had was, for instance, my standards-based program, that their project that we're working on right now. We're about 3.5 years into it, but I started it about 5 years ago. It took me 1.5 years working with my colleague at the middle school principal, and my superintendent to kind of give them the information they needed and prove to them by way of painting a picture that this was the direction we needed to go. And along the while, I exposed teachers to the idea, sent them to trainings, introduced them to the consultant that I really got fired up by, and those kinds of things. And along the way, in that 1.5 years, more and more people decided, hey, this is where we need to go, this is a great idea. And so I was able to sit back and say, it is, so let's get going, kind of thing. So what I found it works best for me in my participatory style of leadership is, I'm a person at the table who has some great ideas, but I'm not the only one who has great ideas, and so I need to listen to those others who have those great ideas too. Now certainly that comes with a cautionary tale of when you're the superintendent or it's happening in a building and you're the administrator, the buck stops with you. There may be some ideas that my staff has known all along. There may be some ideas that either financially you can't support or legally I can't support or whatever, and if those are shared, I'm upfront with that. While that might be great, I had a teacher who had some release time and he took over some assessment things for me. And once he got into the realm of looking at our ACT scores and looking at what wasn't happening in our math classes or our English classes, he became on fire and kind of bull in a china shop. We got those teachers who tell them what to do, and I sit them down at the table and say, whoa, you know, you can't just go charging in and expect people to adopt what you're thinking. You have to bring them along, you have to show them, you know, and listen to their ideas, because maybe they have some things that can go along with what you're saying. So that tends to be the style that I use.
Thanks. Gary, number 7.
How would you communicate with various stakeholders, community, administrative, teaching, students?
I've used very traditional models in the past, newsletters, articles in district newsletters. You know, dare I say email, that's almost out of date, but as far as the kids are concerned. My son tells me Twitter is where it's at now. I'm not sure, I mean, I have an account on Twitter, but I'm not sure I know how to use it well enough yet. But I think what you do is you find the medium that works best for that group of stakeholders, whether it be a phone tree, whether it be email, whether it be, you know, okay, we're on Facebook, you know, or hey, we're on Twitter, or whatever it is. The important part is in communicating with stakeholders is making sure that you don't forget to do it. You don't forget to communicate with them. A lot of times I've caught myself after the fact going, oh, shoot, the first thing I should have done was send this message out, not the last thing I did. And so many times we find taking that 30 minutes to write that article was shoved to the last thing that we did, and it should have been the first thing that we did, because we needed to get that information out. I've had groups on emails and things of that nature where it's very easy for me to communicate. We have a system right now that's a school alert that I can send out messages to all of my parents or all of my students, things of that nature. I think the key is multiple vehicles, finding the vehicle that works best for that group, and then making sure you use it.
Rusty, number 8.
What specific strategies do you have to show continuous student growth and improvement?
The biggest strategy I use is the data disaggregation, making sure that we're looking at what our data tells us is happening with our students, which is really hard if all you're looking at is the MMU, the high school level, or the mean of the elementary and middle school level, because so many times we get that data back, it's summative, it's already too late to make changes there. But it's not useless. It does give us information as far as curriculum and instructional areas that may not be up to par that we need to take a look at. One of the things I've moved to, especially this year, is more of a formative data approach. I'm currently using AimsWeb, which is a 3 times a year we benchmark our students in the area of literacy and numeracy. Do they know their basic math facts? Do they know their basic reading skills? Those kinds of things. And by looking at where they are 3 times a year, I'm able to gauge, are they making the growth that they need to throughout the year without having to wait for the state to bring the information back. The NWBA does that a little bit, but they're tied mostly to more of a summative approach too. But there are other programs out there besides AimsWeb that does that. But that kind of an approach allows me to work with my staff and say, okay, are we continuing to meet the target? Are we looking at things that we need to be looking at? I've also worked with my teachers in the area of collecting information. Classroom assessment techniques are some of the things that we've hit hard in this past year. How are they collecting information, even on a class-by-class basis, that tells them that their students are on target? If they don't look at that information and they don't know, then they get that surprise when the test results come back and, you know, gosh, we went over this unit for 2 weeks. What do you mean they are on the test? That's too late. You need to know along the way, how are their students doing? Are they getting it along the way? So things like using an exit slip. The teacher poses a question, and the students write it down on a sticky note, and they slap it on the door on the way out the door. The teacher can very quickly review that information and know, okay, did I hit the mark today? Do I need to do anything tomorrow? You know, where are we at? In a very instantaneous kind of a look. And so showing that growth really equates to, am I staying on top of how are my students doing on a very day-to-day kind of basis?
Brett, number 9.
In doing your research on our district, what would you say are some of our greatest strengths and some of our most pressing challenges?
no audience means they trust in what you're doing, and that's a good thing too. I think one of the other assets that you have, and I'd love to know more about it, is the Beaverton Activity Center. Looks like that's something that you're trying to start for the students and the community in the area, and I'd love to know more about it. But I thought that was a great asset too for your community, because reaching out into the community to provide those opportunities for students beyond the school day is something that is so vital. Budget-wise, while we're still declining and you have to worry about cuts and things of that nature, it appears to be very well balanced. And so that's an area of strength that I believe as a board that you've been good stewards of that. Definitely an area that I would consider a strength for you. I think, and primarily because this is my background in my area and I tend to look here first, I think one of the things that would be a challenge for you is student achievement scores. When you look at the top to bottom rankings, I'm sure you're not where you want to be. You're not in any danger of the state taking you over or anything like that, but you're still not a reward school. You're still not where you want to be. You want to go from great, from good to great. And so student achievement, I think, is one of the areas of challenge that you'd be looking at. And an area that I think that you've been working on, because obviously you've gone from not making AYP to making AYP last year to this year. So certainly, positive, something that you're certainly working on, but not going to be fixed overnight. Definitely. I think probably another challenge is declining enrollment, and that's a challenge not just for Beaverton but across the state. How do we address declining enrollment? I run a virtual school in St. Charles right now. I started the school year with 135 students in St. Charles that never walked the building, but yet we got the FTE funding for them. I currently have, middle school and high school numbers in my head, 79 students this semester. Again, that's 79 FTEs to our district that are not walking our building, not sitting on our seats, so I don't have to provide staffing for them, but yet I educate them nonetheless. So can we look at some virtual opportunities? I don't know if that's a good fit for Beaverton or not, but it's those creative ways to meet those challenges of declining enrollment, because again, as you well know, students sitting in your seats or students FTEs to your district equate to funding, and that's your primary source of funding.
I did just want to point out to you that the people who aren't here, they're probably on the other side of that little round thing there.
They will be. They will be later.
People have gotten used to seeing those things, and that's how they find out exactly what's going on in our school board meetings.
There you go.
Courtesy of our local paper. And
There you go. That's an awesome opportunity.
And I just have two things relative to that question because you asked, right? The first one being the BAC. So just a quick 30-second. Uniquely enough, our oldest building is far north here on campus. Because of numbers and things, we didn't need to utilize that building for instruction. A group of very passionate community members came to us as a school board a few years ago. So this has been something kind of in progress for some time to say how can we utilize that building to help the students, the staff, the community, right? Kind of an outreach. They're doing it in Coleman similarly, partnering with the Midland Community Center, and this is something that we're starting to see some classes in there for not only students but senior citizens and folks throughout the community, exercise classes. So that's a really great program. Something that we're working with as effectively as we can with the money that we don't have.
Sure.
Right? That continues to be a topic of conversation, but it is a good balance as we move ahead. The other thing is kind of a follow-up question I have relative to your virtual learners and your FTE students. We've entered into an agreement with an outside service vendor that provides some of that for us in the homeschool arena. Do you have any experience with that, or do you guys?
Those listeners paying attention to the information professional organizations put out, and going to those professional opportunities like law updates and things of that nature to stay on top of things.
And we also utilize Neola as a district.
So it's also very good.
Thank you. Yeah.
We have several good candidates in respect to your central office experience. What sets you apart from the rest, and why should we hire you?
I think what sets me apart from the rest is the variety of experiences. I'm not aware of the other candidates' backgrounds. I'm only aware of mine, but I know that I provide for you a variety of experiences from classroom, alternative ed, to building administration to RESD administration. I've had positions in each one of those levels, and along the way I've learned different aspects about running a school district and running a building. As if being the daughter of an educator wasn't enough, and living it my whole life, it is my passion in being able to provide for you background of running migrant programs in Northern Michigan to dealing with what happens when students break training code and fall out of that. I have those variety of experiences, and along the way, the lessons that I've learned from them are very valuable, and I bring that experience to you. I think the other thing that sets me apart from other candidates is my sheer passion for what I do. It is who I am. I can't imagine doing anything differently. I wake up every morning feeling like I'm the luckiest person in the world that I get to work with kids, and I get to make a difference for them. And that passion, I think, comes through very clearly in the involvement in the activities. I'm in the concession stand on football Fridays. I'm taking tickets on, basketball games. That's not my favorite sport, but I go anyway. I have joined our band for a Christmas concert and played my oboe because I just love being with the kids, and that passion and that enthusiasm for what I do. I can't contain it. It's who I am. So I bring that to you and offer that energy level and that commitment to what I do.
Darren, our 13th and final question.
Thank you for answering all of our questions. Do you have any questions for us?
I did have a few, many of which have been answered, I think. But I think based on it, and I think probably part of the answer I didn't give you because I talked about it before, is my strength in curriculum instruction and data disaggregation. And so one of the questions is I found it difficult to find a data warehouse solution that you use. Do you have a data warehouse solution? And if so, does it match with Skyward?
Data research, yeah.
Yeah, if I may.
Yeah, but Dave.
The RESD and the locals use Data Director.
Okay.
And it's a controversial issue because Data Director 1 is acceptable to the state for best practice.
Okay.
And it has a lot of capacity, but what we have found out, and I think other locals have too, is that it's really your high-end users that can make the most out of Data Director. For example, our State and Federal Programs Director understands it and is able to use it. For the practitioner in the classroom is where it breaks down. And so other alternatives that we are looking at is Skyward being one, because our staff is very used to doing that for reporting, communicating, attendance, and so it's a natural fit. Plus it's data, which is more applicable to their role. So the question then becomes, are we going to do the two, Data Director, which the state will acknowledge as a choice, and then also Skyward as an example, and there's another one that some of our buildings use. I can't tell you the exact name of that, but it's called the Golden Package Data. But that's not data you can manipulate,
Right.
where Skyward is. And of course, if you're going to go with two different platforms, then you're going to pay twice the money. So that is very much an issue in our district. We do see we want to have staff have the availability and some data going to use. So that's a decision that is going to have to be made here shortly.
I think the only other question that I thought was probably most pressing from my perspective, given my background, is that I see that the teacher's contract expires this June. Have you begun negotiations? I noticed that you made action at board level to be negotiations.
Yep, currently we are in negotiations with the BEA, our educational staff. Superintendent Marston and I have been meeting with their group over the last several weeks, yeah, probably a month and a half, to be proactive and try to keep those lines of communication going. Yeah, it's been going, I can't give you all the ins and outs because we're in negotiations, but it has been going very well. Mr. Fry?
Yeah, I've written my follow-up question on the wrong sheet. Okay, now, obviously you've got a strong curriculum background. How do you propose that you will work out with the finance and the conflict resolution aspects of the job?
As a building level administrator and as a grants program administrator, budgets are not, I'm not unfamiliar with them. I've had to live within them. I've done budgeting, everything from zero-based budgeting when I was at the city, where I had to, even though it was a grant, I had to justify every penny in my budget and why it was there and what I spent for it. So I kind of cut my teeth on zero-based budgeting and moved to a system that I'm currently in right now, where I'm given my building's budget or my program's budget, and it is my responsibility to make sure I live within the guidelines of that budget and then make recommendations for the future. So I'm not unfamiliar with budgeting, state level budgets, federal budgets for grants, things of that nature. The idea is to plan versus supplement, things of that nature. Probably the only thing I haven't done is a superintendent who signs on the dotted line. My other budgeting and finance responsibilities currently are I'm the administrator responsible for all the internal funds. So I have to oversee all of the internal funds. We carry a balance in our checkbook of about $4,000 on any given day for the district's entire internal account fund, clubs, organizations, classes, sports, so while it doesn't look like I have a whole lot of finance experience, I do from a practical standpoint. I just haven't signed on the dotted line for that final budget. Very familiar with auditing reports and things of that nature. And when push comes to shove, so I think that will help. And so looking at the crisis management part of it in response to budgeting or in another area?
Well, no, just conflict resolution. One of the jobs of a superintendent is to take care of conflicts between staff and sometimes with the public and things like that.
In my meager beginnings as a health coordinator, one of the things that we had to do was conflict resolution training, and that became part of our comprehensive health solutions. And so providing those trainings and things of that nature was something that I've done for many, many years and been involved in for many, many years. And I have found over the years that conflict resolution comes down to being able to listen very well and then being able to communicate. In my role as a health coordinator for the city of Saginaw, I was housed in the Parent Resource Center, and ours was the place parents called when they didn't get satisfaction from the superintendent's office. And so dealing with conflict and dealing with issues has been something that I've done in many, many different capacities, from a program specialist to a classroom teacher when students and parents weren't happy with things that happened, to a building level principal when I was responsible for administering discipline that didn't sit real well with parents or with that student, and working through that process to, as a curriculum person, providing the training for others to how do you de-escalate the situation, how do you resolve conflict in a win-win type style. So I have a wealth of experience in all of those areas.
And how would you describe your conflict resolution style? What is your style?
I never thought of it. That's an interesting question. I never thought of it that way. My style is probably one of de-escalation. Many, many, many times I have found success in taking time to just listen to what the person's concern was. I had a situation where a parent came in and was very agitated and showing it very loudly, very inappropriately to my secretary. I happened to walk into the office in the middle of all of that and invited the parent into my office to sit down and just tell me what's going on. And then I listened. I stopped talking and I listened. And really the bottom line was she was extremely frustrated and she didn't know how to express it. So it was coming out inappropriately. And in listening to what she had to say and what her concerns were, it gave me an opportunity to share what the issue was and why we were confined to the answer she was getting based on policy, based on the regulations from the state and things of that nature that we had to live within. And making sure that the parent knew I understood her concerns and that they weren't falling on deaf ears. While I didn't have the ability to change the answer, it was the answer, I understood why it was not working for her, and I was able to convey that and communicate that to her. So as she left my office, she apologized
Anybody else? Any other follow-up question?
I do, if I may, only because Heather raised a program that exists here, and you seem to have had a different experience with it, and that is the JST,
Yes,
seat time waiver,
yes.
which does exist in this district for the first
Yeah,
time,
it was
and
time
also
waiver.
Genesee ISD is over the umbrella of this. It has not been successful. Luckily, it was done in a small way, so it did not become a financial burden, but it's been frustrating. Did you do the midterm report?
I did.
Yes, and may I ask how many credits were available to students who took the JST?
We run a very traditional program, and it's through K-12. So our high school students and middle school students take 6 classes. So essentially, my 135 students had 6 classes, but that equated to 3 credits each. Now, that's not an exact number because I do have some students who are on a partial schedule. They're virtual half a day, they go to a resource, or not, I'm sorry, a center-based vocational program half a day, and things of that nature. But generally, we run a full-time program for our students, our virtual students, and they run 6 credits a year, so 3 credits at each.
So, and approximately, and that was a large number of credits that were available to students. What was the rate of success that first semester?
That is probably the biggest frustration for me in our seat time waiver program. I've become very adept at understanding what it takes for a virtual student to be successful. And probably half, I would say, off the top of my head, were successful. And that is extremely disappointing to me. But of those half that were successful, they were extremely successful. What my teachers on my staff don't recognize because they don't see the grades and they don't see the students. They just think, oh, the alternative ed student and they're getting, C's and D's and things of that nature. I have a very strong contingent of students who are virtual students who would be valedictorians if they were in my building. In fact, we just got our ACT scores back last week, and the highest ACT score in our building is a virtual student. So I'm finding that there is kind of like a 2 ends of the spectrum. I have about a third, so almost a half of my students that are highly successful in the virtual program. They are your, I hate to stereotype, but they are your stereotype homeschool students, students who for a variety of reasons, never really did fit into a traditional school setting, either for family reasons or personal reasons, or who have been not successful with the traditional school for reasons that had nothing to do with their ability to interact with the academics part of it, but for social reasons weren't fitting in those kinds of things. They're on the end of the spectrum that are extremely successful and flying, and doing a great job with it, and I love interacting with them. On the other end, I've got a spectrum of students who are what I would consider, again, I apologize for stereotyping, but they're your stereotypical alternative ed students who have not engaged with their own learning and have not been successful in a traditional setting, but for whatever reason, they have to go to school, either because somebody at home makes them or the state makes them, or that's how they get their funding through Social Security or whatever it is. They feel they don't have a choice, they have to go to school. Well, in a virtual setting, engaging is more the responsibility of the learner, not less the responsibility of the learner. And my experience is they are even less successful in the virtual setting. And so my challenge has been, how do we engage with those students? We haven't found that answer yet, but I keep looking.
Well, just, I would say in closing, just if you had 50% success rate, that would be a success based on another local's experience here in the RESD and on ours.
We'll take it. It's not what we want, we'll take it. And we'll build it. I did start out with 35 students. I didn't start out with 100. Just so you know, I started small too, and it grew exponentially, and I went, holy cow.
Anybody else? Well, other with that, thank you very much. We do appreciate you taking the time. And on a Saturday where maybe the weather wasn't super great, hope you don't float away on the way home.
That's all right.
Perfect.
All right. It's been my pleasure. Thank you all very
Yes,
much.
thank you very much. So, on that note, do again want to say, Susan, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate you taking the time out of your weekend and having the opportunity to come over and chat with us relative to our opening. Just a couple of things from an administrative housekeeping type perspective. We have 60 minutes allocated for the interview. Board has 13 questions that we would like to get through. I am going to be keeping an eye on the clock just for nothing else other than to make sure we for sure get the last 2 questions asked. If one needs to fall off in that 10-11 range, we will do that. But I'll ask the first question, and then just so you hear from all the board members, we'll work from my left all the way around to get to the 13 questions. Very informal. Want to know, make sure that you know if you're working through the questions here with us and you have a question for us, then, please feel free to ask. And we may ask some follow-up questions as we move along. But if you need to stop and take a drink, feel free to do so. We just want it to be a good, positive interaction here today. So again, thanks for coming. With that, I'm going to hit start on the clock here. And we'd like you to open, Susan, if you wouldn't mind, with sharing with us several of the highlights from your career thus far, and then also talk to us about what your career goals are for the future.
Well, highlights from my 26 years in education at this point, I'll back up to my experience in Owasso. That was a Class A, or is a Class A school district, about a $32 million budget. At the time that I was there, it was 4,000, close to 4,000 students, 4,000 plus at one point. And I started there as a reading teacher in the middle school. And I was a middle school reading teacher for 7 years. Actually, just prior to that, I had taught summer school and adult education for 2.5 years. So after my 7 years at the middle school, I transitioned to the high school to become a high school English teacher, which is what I had been trained for initially, thinking that I would go right to the high school level. But in Owasso, I worked my way up. It was a fantastic experience. I was there 4 years in the building. Had a large or major interest in curriculum, and was hired then as the curriculum director in Owasso. And so I was director of curriculum instruction and assessment for 9 years. And then our superintendent at that time was transitioning out, and I became the interim superintendent appointed by the board. And so I enjoyed that. It was only a few months. It was during the superintendent search, but it did give me an opportunity to have experience with negotiating and the budget, those types of things, and to see the bigger picture. So that inspired me a year later, after going back to the curriculum directorship, to pursue a superintendency on my own. And I moved to northwestern Michigan in East Jordan, and I was superintendent there for 2 years, 2010 to 2012. That was a fantastic experience. We had some challenges in terms of the contract. We had challenges in terms of some personnel issues, and we had an AYP, a building that had not made adequate early progress in 2 years prior to my arrival. But we had great success there. We passed a technology bond with a 3-to-1 margin, technology and us. We passed our special ed bond, and the Headley override that was easily passed. So we had a lot of success there. And I chose to leave East Jordan, actually, to relocate to Central Michigan, where I knew I wanted to pursue my doctorate degree, and also get my husband employed. He is an automotive technician, and he's currently working in Owasso, Michigan. So he's enjoying that career of 28 years or so. So he's employed again, and we're very happy about that. So, as far as my goals, I enjoyed the superintendency very much. I want to get back into it. As you know from my resume, I'm currently working as an English professor at Alpena Community College. So communication is a forte of mine. All types of communicating. In fact, I'm teaching a class called public communication. But with that said, I enjoy higher education very much, but I would really like to come back to the superintendency and be part of a district, the fabric of a community. So that's definitely my immediate goal. As far as long-term goals, I would like to be a superintendent in a district for a long period of time. I would like to see things happen together. I'd like to be there long enough to make some lasting impressions, some lasting changes that everybody is developing. Not necessarily to go in and create change, but to work with people and facilitate things for kids. So if someday I ended up in higher education, I think that would be fantastic. Maybe upon retirement, to go into teaching at the college level or the university level, any educational leadership role after I received a degree, that would be fantastic. But that would be way out there.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. Brent, second question, please.
What makes our community and school district an attractive place for you and your family?
The location is key. It's in a perfect location, and it's a beautiful part of Michigan. It is a size school district that I enjoy. I grew up in Byron, Michigan, between, Flint and Lansing. Actually, it's more southeast of the Owasso area. And so I grew up in a Class C school district. East Jordan was a Class C, enjoyed that very much. And this is the right size. I also appreciate all of the programming that you have going on for your students. The campus is all centrally located. It's just a very fine institution in a beautiful community.
Great.
Number 3. As you well know, the staff evaluations have taken on new importance. So I'd like you to describe, if you would, what the superintendent's level of responsibility and involvement should be in those evaluations.
Well, drawing from experience, most recent experience, as far as the superintendent's involvement in staff evaluation, the superintendent, of course, does not evaluate instructional staff, but they do evaluate administrative staff, so we understand that. I have had experience in developing the actual evaluation tool in partnership with the Education Association, with the executive board members right in my office with our administrative team, and developing that tool together. So that was the most recent experience in East Jordan, and it was most productive and most welcomed, actually, by the teachers. So my point there in terms of the superintendent's involvement, maybe as far as, like in East Jordan, that tool had yet to be developed. We did it together as a team. So if that were the case here, I would see myself as being a partner in that process, helping to guide, to roll my sleeves up, not just be looking at the process from afar, but to be encouraging and helpful to the administration, along with the teachers union in developing that tool. Beyond the actual creation of the tool, if the tool here is already established, it would be my job to make sure that these were done in a timely fashion, that we had an organized plan in terms of how many observations, checklists, in working with the administration to make sure that these checks and balances were complete. So I think my job would be oversight in general of the entire process. But I want you to know that I have had even deeper involvement in helping develop the tool with the teachers, which was actually a very enjoyable experience.
Follow up on that one, just how well did that work out with that? They're still using that tool, I think, and it's been well received?
Yes, it was well received because it was completely transparent. And we operated, via transparency all the way. Every meeting that we had, we took minutes. We didn't necessarily distribute the minutes, but everybody in our group had a copy of those. And so the EA executive board could at least report out, we're this far, and now we're this far. We're planning on implementation on this date. And so they get a chance too to look at the tool, to give us any feedback and that kind of thing. So it was such a transparent, collaborative process with the superintendent that everybody benefited. Because now I know every aspect of that tool. And it would also be the superintendent's job to support teachers in terms and administrators in terms of where deficiencies were upon the evaluation being implemented, and to help our employees improve.
As a quick follow-up to that, how do you see the 25% requirement for student achievement being tied to the evaluation of teaching staff? See that as a positive, as a negative, and then how do you really work to integrate that into the evaluation process?
Well, number one, that's a high number. It's a bar that has been set very high. I think it's a good bar. I don't think it's something that we shy away from. I do think that it's an ambitious goal. But again, if we're transparent, we're all working as a team, administration and teaching staff, that if we offer the appropriate professional development, and they're provided with pacing guides, and they're provided with target goals that are posted on the wall, and they're taught how to get these things done in terms of teaching the standards that are supposed to be tested and the students proficient in. Through all of that, it truly can be achieved. I'm a firm believer in meeting the bar. It's ambitious, but it can be done. And it can't be done from afar, from a superintendent sitting back hoping that it will happen. With my curriculum background, I think that's something to consider. That's a selling point. I would very much want to be involved in bringing appropriate professional development to our teachers.
Thank you very much. So many school districts in Michigan are under serious financial stress due to no increase in state revenues and declining enrollment, as we well know. And now we have to incorporate the federal sequester into that equation. So how would you as superintendent deal, and I always have said through the past 4 interviews, deal with this annually, right? We know this is not a problem that's going to go away. So annually deal with the challenge of declining revenue and increasing costs.
My number one goal would be the enrollment piece. Looking at ways to increase enrollment in this particular school district. It is something that is not going away. I think we would need to assess the staff in terms of, our staff's students or children attending our district. If they're not, are there reasons why not? Those transient families that have moved out of the district, we need to do some research and find out why they have moved on, if it was employment reasons or whatever. But if there are reasons that are particular to our programming or lack of programming, we need to find out what those reasons are and cater to those needs that are being expressed as detrimental, causing families to be transient moving on. Beyond enrollment, I'm sure that you've heard probably from every candidate, we would need to think of creative ways to increase revenue in terms of writing grants. I understand that in the one building that was transitioned into a pre-primary building with another program.
We call it community.
Yeah, the old
Yes.
Activity center.
center.
Correct.
Now,
My hope would be that we grow that program over there or implement programs there that would help us generate greater revenue. So those are a couple of ways, but again, the focus has to be on increasing enrollment and selling ourselves. the community, to the public, to the greater region.
Susan, have you ever been chief negotiator in developing a salary schedule or a contract?
I have not been a chief negotiator other than at East Jordan Public Schools. I sat with the district attorney. So in a sense, I was a co-chief negotiator. The district attorney and I partnered in that effort in negotiating the contract. So I was at the table, obviously, every session, worked very closely with the board and the attorney for the district.
How many times did you have to go through that process?
Over the past 2 years, it was an ambitious schedule. Gosh, almost 24 times.
Individual meetings.
Correct.
Right, so would that be?
And a lot of side meetings,
Right.
preparing for that. So over a period of 2 years of working through the contract language, I would just say I was involved continuously over 2 years with the board committee, the subcommittee, and also with the district attorney, with the teachers union, and then of course sitting at the table each time.
Darren, number 6.
Susan, from your experience and perspective, how involved should a superintendent be in the school improvement process? And could you speak about your involvement in previous positions?
A superintendent must be very involved in the school improvement process, highly involved. I think that from the standpoint of developing district goals and everything, done from each building, each level to achieve those goals, the superintendent is responsible for ensuring that the board has developed goals, overarching goals for the entire district through a facilitated workshop atmosphere. Also, a step below that would be the district improvement plan, making sure that that is developed and that that is turned in on time, that it has goals that are reasonable and do incorporate the board goals for the district. Underneath that would be the school improvement plan goals that would need to align with the DIP. And then along with that, some districts have transitioned their strategic planning committee into the district improvement plan committee. And that is something that I did in East Jordan. We had 40-some people that were at one point a separate entity, and we wrapped them into the DIP group so that they had a better understanding of the instructional pieces to school improvement. So we became a larger group. But I would say the superintendent has a large role in ensuring that the process is understandable to everyone, that the mission and vision of the district are incorporated in there, and that everything's aligned. What was the second part, Jerry?
The second part was, could you speak about your involvement in previous positions?
Yes. In Owasso, I was extremely involved as a curriculum director for 9 years. I led the school improvement committees. The district-wide school improvement committee was my responsibility for those 9 years in Owasso. In East Jordan, I was very involved in school improvement, again, spearheading the district-wide improvement team with the stakeholders of the community as well.
Gary, number 7.
How do you communicate with various stakeholders, community, administrative, teaching, students?
Starting with community, definitely being visible. I think that's number one. That's key. Visibility, also being engaged in the community. Joining Rotary, I've been a Rotarian for many years, about 11 years now, and that's something that I want to look into. But being involved in service clubs, community activities, rolling up my sleeves and picking up trash alongside the road with the bright green vest with the other Rotarians, and doing things that show the community that I care about our district and our community. So visibility, also going down to the different venues downtown and talking to community members. I did that in Owasso, in East Jordan, at the Senior Center, and had coffee with seniors in the community and did some PowerPoints and some discussions with them there in terms of budget reduction and what we're looking at, what ideas do you have, those types of things. And additionally, even as a curriculum director in Owasso, and then as the interim superintendent, I was on the radio and on TV pretty regularly with the radio, and the TV was here and there. So I think getting the word out with newsletters as well as a superintendent is very important as far as the community. Taking a step down and going internally, staff communication is definitely key. Making sure that everyone knows what's on the board agenda, being available the day after a board meeting to speak to any staff member that had a question or concern about what may have transpired at a board meeting. Making sure that I have a good relationship with the media. They're very important. They help us sell the district, so it's important to have that tie there. And again, various means in terms of internal communication with staff, all the way from going down to the bus garage and having coffee with the drivers early in the morning before they leave, to being outside when parents arrive in the morning and in the afternoon, along with emails, telephone calls, walking through the buildings before the day starts and throughout the day as time permits, making sure that the staff knows that I care and that I'm listening. And finally, communicating with students, that really has to be one-on-one, genuine relationships with kids. And they'll either get a sense of that from the superintendent or they won't. It depends on the leadership style of the superintendent. My style is very kid-friendly. I'm all about kids, which is why I'm in education. So any opportunity that I had as a superintendent in East Jordan to walk down the hallway, my office was in the elementary building, to see the kids doing their thing, whether it's figure painting or creating a writing project, it was important to me to make those connections and to learn as many names as possible and get through the different buildings. So I think that has to be done on a regular basis too. But again, genuine relationships with kids, attending after-school activities, making sure that they know that I'm visible and that I care and I'm approachable if they have any ideas or concerns.
Can you list specific strategies that you would use to show continuous student growth and achievement?
Yes, data collection is obviously part of that. It's a big piece of that because it's one thing to collect a lot of data, and it's another thing to collect the right data. We need to make sure that we're collecting the right data that is going to lead us down the path of higher student achievement. Strategies for that would include, taking a look at sort of surveying or conducting an evaluation of what assessments that we administer internally. Are our assessments, pre-K-12, are they regular? What are they testing? How many grades are tested regularly in mathematics and in literacy skills, reading, writing, listening, speaking, and those types of things? Are we administering any sort of internal social studies or science exams? And then again, looking at the state standards as well, the standardized tests. But collecting the appropriate data, conducting gap analyses to ensure that we are addressing the gap. And I have a lot of examples of that if you wanted to dig deeper with me from my 9 years as a curriculum director. A lot of examples. Another thing that I did was I created colorful visual charts. We had a district-wide data center in the boardroom, which encompassed probably the size of that window, not as tall, but actually a little bit longer than that. And we collected all types of data in terms of demographics about the district, student achievement, and those types of things. And once the data became visual, and it was spoken about at board meetings, it became part of the culture. This isn't so hard. It's not so intimidating anymore. We also were involved in district-wide accreditation with AdSec. So that made it easier in terms of this is why we're doing this. But I think a data center in the district office or where board meetings are held is a very powerful, visual, colorful tool to tell our story. Beyond a PowerPoint that goes away, it's actually on the wall. And then each building had its own data center, right in a visible spot where people would walk in. And then, of course, we had students collecting their own data in terms of their own achievement. And we had bulletin boards in classrooms devoted to data centers.
Thank you. Brent, number 9.
In doing your research on our school district, what would you say are some of our greatest strengths and some of our most pressing challenges?
Well, right now, actually beginning with the challenge, I noticed that AYP, and in terms of meeting that, the high school needs some help there in terms of percent tested with economically disadvantaged. So that would be an area of focus for me. It is very important that all buildings are achieving AYP, and whatever the reason might be that they're not, that needs to be addressed like a laser beam immediately so it doesn't happen again. And also looking at the other demographics in terms of the different demographics that are measured by the state to achieve AYP. So that's a challenge. Another challenge would obviously be the budget, trying to ensure that we maintain a healthy fund equity and get an idea from the board in terms of what the board's goal is for the percentage of fund equity that they would like to try to preserve. And so the funding piece would definitely be a challenge. As far as researching Beaverton rural schools achievements, there are many spread across a wide variety of areas. I was talking to Missy about the increase in writing scores. Over the past few years, the idea of having a literacy coach in the primary and middle buildings is extremely right. Very, very smart of you to do that, to have one. Not all districts are privileged to have a literacy coach doing those types of things. So your writing scores are going up, reading scores are going up, and we definitely would promote those literacy pieces, bring in professional development to keep promoting that. As far as your band program and the arts, you're trying to preserve those higher level thinking types of activities that make a well-rounded student. And so I applaud the efforts that you're making with the music, the arts, and athletics, trying to keep those programs.
Bob, number 10.
We recently have begun having our business manager, instead of having an on-site business manager that's employed by the slow working with the RESD to develop an office that has more than our business manager functions. Now, how would you see the superintendent developing the annual budget in concert with that business office?
I'm familiar with that model, I can tell you that. Prior to my arrival in East Jordan, that was the model that they used. It was not the model in Wausau. We have a business manager there, but it does work. I did, well, just prior to my arrival in East Jordan, the interim superintendent had changed the model back to having a business manager full time. So there was help with payroll in that area specifically through the ISD. But as far as the superintendent's involvement with developing the budget and having that help available, again, the first place that I would start is working with the board in terms of the targets, the budgetary targets. What is our revenue? What are our expenditures? What type of a gap are we looking at from year to year? And definitely laying out a long-term plan for those pieces and short-term goals as well. So in working with the board, once those goals are developed, how much would you like to keep in fund equity? Then we have some baselines to establish to begin with. From there, I would work with that person in terms of any administration, obviously, in terms of programming, taking a look at what we're offering, what the enrollment is, and keeping any reductions as far from students as possible. I know you hear that all the time, but that's the truth. And when you make reductions in any area, whether it's reducing a program, consolidating something, it does ultimately affect the kids. So is there really a way to reduce the budget without directly impacting kids? Probably not. I mean, it all impacts kids. But that would be my goal. And again, having periodic meetings with that person, daily interaction, making sure that we're both on track in terms of revenue and expenditures.
Great. Susan, as superintendent, what would you view your role to be in developing and implementing district policy?
You have Neola policy here, correct?
Correct. We use those for our update service, yeah.
Correct, okay. As far as my role in that, first of all, I do believe that a superintendent must have a moral compass. That's an expectation of everyone. And so through that moral compass, that means following rules and ensuring that all of those policies are updated regularly. I'm very familiar with Neola. We use that in Owasso. I'm familiar with 23 years of that. And then also 2 years at East Jordan, I actually implemented Neola there. They had used the former NASB 1999 version. And so we implemented it from the very beginning, my first year there. So again, I would definitely enforce board policy. There are situations that, I mean, that would be a given. There are situations that are sometimes delicate that do feel personal, I think, to people when a board policy is challenged or a board policy is violated. Again, it would be my job to make sure that board policies are not challenged or violated. But at the same time, understanding that if somebody had a concern about a policy, it would be my job to walk them through the ins and outs of that policy and why they must remain this way, why the language is this way. You're given, as a school district, a boilerplate template that the board and administration tweak in terms of making it fit that district, primarily the board, the governing body, with input maybe from administration. So once that's in place and it's board approved, the oversight of policy is the school superintendent's job.
Thank you. Amy?
So the rest, and why should we hire you?
High energy. I would bring to the district charisma, high energy, visibility. It's a given, or I think it's something that's very obvious when you see me work with people, that I enjoy people very much. And so as far as having somebody that would be out there selling the district, that would be a natural piece for me. I enjoy education very much, and the district that I work for becomes my family, and so that would be very important to me. Also, my leadership style is that of servant leadership. I go home every night and think about whether or not I serve the students well, I serve the staff well, the administration, have I served the board well in what they hired me to do, am I serving the community well? So I see myself as more of a servant leader, wanting to serve others, along with a very collaborative style.
Darren, number 13, final question.
Susan, thank you for answering all of our questions. Do you have any questions for us?
I really don't, other than the timeline, which Dave pretty much spoke to me about before the interview, that there might be a decision as early as early next week as to who the final two candidates will be that you'll be bringing back. But beyond that, no, I don't have any questions.
And just to verify, and Dave will discuss as we leave, but yeah, Tuesday next week is where we'll update on all the candidates to the process as far as where we stand. So we want to keep moving along in the process. Board members, do you have any individual questions for Susan?
Okay, one of them is just a housekeeping question. I should have done before. For some reason, I never did check the size of East Jordan's students, number of students and budget size.
Number of students, when I left in June of 2012, was at about 1,016.
Okay. And budget
And
size?
the budget is 9 million.
Okay. And then, might seem like an odd question, but what intimidates you professionally? Is there anything that intimidates you professionally?
I think it would be an unusual answer to say no. I'm not intimidated by anything. We're all human. But what intimidates me the most? I think what it would be the most for me is when people question what we're doing. That's intimidating. It's I would want to ensure, and that boils down to communication. I'm not afraid of community meetings where it could get heated, or we have a lot of concerns, or a particular board meeting that might arise here and there, where there might be some concerns. But again, it would be my job to be proactive to ensure that everybody is correctly informed so these things don't happen. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's an uncomfortable feeling. And what I usually find out is that they're uninformed. So that's when, I invite them to come into the office and talk to me about it. And it usually is cleared up like that. So initially, it's uncomfortable. But again, it can also be prevented.
Any other questions from board members? Superintendent Martin, any questions?
Just one, and this is kind of an unorthodox question too. That is, one of your references describe you as tough. Why would they describe you as tough?
I think because in East Jordan, we have some personnel issues that have been neglected prior to my arrival. One for many, many years, over 2 decades. One for 11 years. And one more immediate, that the community, the employees knew was festering. Yet, they were not dealt with. So when I went in as the superintendent, I was made aware of these. I made sure that I understood all of the facets, all of the rationale and the research behind the concerns. And I do handle personnel issues with finesse, with dignity, in terms of not attacking a person's dignity, but making sure, again, that board policies are followed, that state law is followed in some of these cases. And to me, these things with personnel should not have been neglected. So my answer to that would be, I am a firm, fair, and consistent leader. Firm, fair, consistent. And all I mean by firm, I don't mean it in any sort of intimidating way. I mean, we do have state laws, and we do have board policy, and we do have handbooks that must be followed. And again, I'm not against sitting down with a cup of coffee and talking to somebody about their interpretation of a particular policy or handbook statute. But at the same time, we all are professionals and we must be held accountable. So the accountability piece is important to me. If we're going to truly be an excellent organization, we are all accountable. Myself at the very first.
Thank you. Perfect. Well, if you don't have any more questions for us, and we don't have any more questions for you, I would again like to say thank you very much for taking the time to come out today and discuss these things with us. I think Superintendent Marston has some information for you as we part, but I do want to say thanks again and have a great rest of your weekend. Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Like the Lutheran churches and a lot of Methodist, United Methodists and stuff like that, they very often consider, once a pastor's been in a location for 8 years, they figure that's long enough to do good for the congregation and not too long to harm the congregation, make the congregation to identify with one particular person. And so quite often, 8 years is considered a good life expectancy for a pastorship. And if it's a good enough life expectancy for a pastorship, which is much more personal than this, I would say it's a good life expectancy for a church. And that way you get some change every once in a while, and it doesn't become a district like the district that I grew up in that was identified with one man. When he died, that district had a serious problem for a few years. This kid done the superintendent they had for something like 40 years.
You mean because he was so irreplaceable?
Yes.
Well, wouldn't
Nobody
this process-
could fill those shoes.
Wouldn't this process that we just went through today, where we had at least 2 very strong candidates, I think, and a couple other ones that weren't bad either?
Yep.
Just can't close them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think the problem is when the shoes are so big that other people feel intimidated to try to fill them. That can be a problem overall when the district is known by its leaders, like a church that's known by its pastors, by the congregation.
Okay, so anybody else have any adjustments relative to their scores? I think we communicated to Brennan. So with that, maybe Brennan, if it changed any, let us know. And then what I'd like to do is, on Bob's suggestion, I'm going to open it up for public comment. But I do want everybody here to be very cognizant of the fact that we do want to hear public comments, but we want to make sure that we keep them, and I don't see this as being an issue, right? But I'm not going to allow any personal attacks on any of the candidates, especially because, you know, there's the opportunity potentially, I'm assuming, for these folks to hear these very soon. You know, so I would ask that we maintain professionalism and, you know, keep it very objective and positive. So, Brendan, if you could give us that update.
After going through all 5
And just to let the public know, kind of this process that we did is each question, other than the final question that said what questions you have for us, each question was scored on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the least, and 5 the highest, or the best response. Not necessarily considering, are they the right fit for that, but how did they do answering the question, and how would that fit in with our district? And then, we added all of those up. The results are as follows. We have 2 candidates who are head and shoulders above the other 3, and those would be Susan Wooden with a net score of 363, and Heather Deline with a net score of 344. After that, we have 2 candidates who are significantly lower than that, but yet still closely tied to one another. That would be Patrick Briggs at 287 and Kathleen Jarrett at 275. And then finally, our 5th candidate is somewhat farther down the list, and that would be Drew Milliron at 254. Just, opening up for discussion of that follows pretty closely or almost exactly how I would see it in my eyes as sitting here for the last 8 hours. Seeing how it went. So I'm fairly confident in the process, and that list would probably would be my top 5 in order. I'm not saying we're deciding anything today, but just so that knows where I stand. Okay.
So just to confirm again, make sure I wrote it down right. So we had Kathleen at 275, Heather at 344, Patrick at 287, Drew at 254, and Susan at 363.
That's correct.
Okay. Now I'll open it up for public comments. Remember too, communications or expressions are just that. We're not answering questions today. We'll hear what you have to say. We'll take it into consideration, but we're not going to get into a debate about. We'd like to hear what you thought, but we're not going to come back to you and say, yes, we agree, or no, we don't. I mean, you've heard that. And I would like to say thank you to the folks that are here, the ones that have been here all day, also to our greeters, to the food staff that put everything on. This has been a very well orchestrated day, I think. And there's been a lot of people who have had a hand in that, so thank you. I do appreciate that, and the board does as well. So, communications or expressions from the public. Missy.
Unfortunately, I only got to hear the last candidate, but I just want to say that in the 3 short years that I've been here, the tremendous amount of change that I have seen and been a part of in this district, I've learned that I truly, truly believe we've had some struggles and it's been a hard, some of it has been painful, growing pains. But I believe we are, as a district, and with the type of teachers we have in the trenches, I feel like we are on the cusp of something big. And I don't want to be cheesy, but I really, truly feel like we are just going to soar with the right leadership. I feel like I just would urge you not to underestimate the power that someone that has curriculum background could do for a district. I feel like it could be the missing piece that pulls it all together and takes us to the top. I understand that business is a huge part of it as well, but if you have the knowledge of what your staff is going through and the belief in the kids, like that last candidate showed, I feel like it would be more powerful than we might realize. So, thank you.
Thanks.
I'll second what Missy said. I picked out the same 2 that you guys did as far as Heather and Susan. I put Susan on top simply because of the curriculum from both of those ladies. Coming from a teacher who's been trying to write math curriculum for the last 1.5 years, 2 years, it's painful. And when I don't have somebody within district to turn to ask questions on what do I do, how do I do it, it's tough. And I know, kudos to June at the RESD because that's who I turn to, and it hasn't been easy. And listening to these two ladies, I think they're on track and will push us over the edge and getting us to that next step. Not saying the other candidates were poor. I think they all five did a wonderful job. I couldn't sit up there and, take that from you guys.
Positions.
Yeah, I would have cried. I like how Susan and Heather both, Susan and Heather both said about writing grants. I like Susan saying going out into the public, talking to the seniors, talking to these people, because to get a millage passed, that's what it's going to take. My brother and I went over to Ludington 2 years ago to watch iPads in the classroom. And they got their millage passed because they went out into the senior centers, took the kids, and showed these older folks what they could do with these iPads. And they got their technology grant passed over there. And I think that's huge. So, good job. Congratulations. Whatever. Good luck.
We'll take it. Any other comments?
Just a short one.
Yep.
I only got to see a couple of the interviews that came late, but Susan, from my just brief experience there, she comes across very approachable, very kind. She's not threatening. Certainly very competent, and like you guys already said, she's had all the answers proper. She didn't have to think about it very long. I thought she did a great job. So of the two I've seen, I would support her.
Thanks. Anybody else?
I have total confidence in our board. And Dave Marson's come in and done a fabulous job in a small amount of time. And I would just direct myself to him that we would strongly have his input because of the position he's been in and the guidance he's given us in this small amount of time.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you. And I think the board would like to echo that, Dave. I know we've had the conversation, but we really do appreciate, your quick engagement, the short duration that you've been here. We really do appreciate what you've given us and what you continue to give us. So Dave's input is going to be sought very, very hard, and we will take his comments continue into consideration.
I would like to thank you guys for allowing us to. I know somebody said it's open meetings that you have to, but I know there's probably places that don't. So I appreciate that we had the opportunity to be able to be here because this was a great experience in my opinion. I agree with the board's tallying of the numbers. I think that they were all great, but I do think those two were above. And I really appreciated, though, I think it was Mr. Briggs who asked each of the board members why they are on the board, because I wanted to ask that so many times. So I was really happy that he did, and I was impressed with everybody's answer. I mean, I knew they were from the heart because most of you I know and I know your history, but I really appreciated that question. So I just want to thank you for answering that honestly and openly. And I, too, kudos to Dave because he's impressed me more than ever. And I would just like to wonder, or question, why can't we get more, I mean, I don't want to say anything because you guys are here, but why aren't more staff involved? And I know you can't answer that, but how do we get more staff involved in board meetings and things like this? I guess if you were looking to hire my boss, I would be here. I mean, he's not, they're not even going to be my boss, and I'm here.
I think I could probably respond to that as well, that we filled out surveys and we did face-to-face communication, things like that too. So they gave us plenty of opportunity to express our concerns and things as a staff as well. So I didn't know if you knew that piece.
I knew that they put out surveys, and I actually questioned the number of surveys that were actually returned, as opposed to the number of people that received them. That kind of boggled my mind also.
Yeah, they had open meetings where we could come and talk to the different board members.
Interesting.
So they allowed that time.
Okay.
So the one thing I will add to that, just because that's the second time we've heard this question today, and I think Brent put it pretty well, we really have one job, and that's hiring and firing the superintendent. Well, we have lots of jobs, but that's our most important job. Because I think the question was, hey, is there a chance of a teacher and a student? And we did have a lot of those discussions about or a desire to provide input did. We did hear some pretty positive feedback relative to that survey and just the process in general. So I want to thank Brent for that. That's a lot of Brent's driving and keeping it organized and pushing. Really, Brent. Thank you.
And I wanted to add as well that I feel very good about listening, at least to the last candidate. I've only sat in the last two, so I can't compare Heather or Susan, but I know just from being a staff member and the type of leadership that I want myself, that she nailed everything that I'm looking for. And I think Missy and Tammy commented on exactly what we need, somebody that has the know-how, experience with the curriculum, the data, just to help guide us through. And I just felt very comfortable with the last candidate, just feeling like she got it. And it made me very happy and relieved to know that possibly our next leader will be very bright and help us through all these challenges that we face every single day, minute to minute, and all the time and energy that we pour into this district. That, just to have that person to help keeps, taking us in the right direction. It sounds like you have some good candidates, and I'm very thankful for that because it affects not only my children in the district, but it affects my daily life and my own working experience and feelings I take home, all of that. And so I'm very happy to hear that you have some good people to choose from.
You are going to narrow it down. When's the final interview going to take place, or is it going to,
We'll talk about that here in just a minute.
Oh, okay, okay.
We're going to go through timeline.
Okay, all right.
Any other comments? Any other? Okay. So I think the way we had kind of left it in our plan, when the committee and board, jump in here if I'm misstating. We kind of had the conversation. We talked about the logistics of this day, kind of going through and not necessarily needing to walk away with a final narrow from 5 to. Our goal was always to then go out and conduct some further background checks, go out and do some site visits, do another round of interviews with these folks. And we had kind of left it to say we'd see how the day went. I think I kind of agree with where the numbers sit today. If you asked me to sit here and narrow, I would narrow down to Susan and Heather as well. I don't know if the board still wants to take tomorrow, tonight, even press, provide your input back to Brent as committee chair. Then we could have another committee meeting to physically do the narrowing. What's the flavor of the board? I mean, are we comfortable moving forward right now?
I would feel comfortable moving forward, and I guess what I can do is just make the motion. If nobody seconds it, then we won't go on. But I would make the motion that we narrow the field right now to Heather and Susan. Yes.
Okay. We have motion and support to narrow the field for the final two candidates to be Heather Bellini and Susan Woodman. Further discussion. Here's where I want to hear if there's any concern with that, and don't feel bad about speaking out because if there's any inkling of there's nothing wrong with taking some more time. If we need to, we will, but if we don't, we won't. So if anybody has.
Just to add, the superintendent committee is going to have to meet next week anyways, just to start to get things around for the final thing, so it's not a gun to your head thing, because we're going to have to meet next week anyways. But if everyone's fine with it now.
We have to be able to schedule site visits, because there's no question about it. We've got to visit the communities that know them.
Yep.
Because that's when we really find out more of the flavor of the personality. We saw a lot of personality today, and we saw a lot of good things, but I think we just want to make sure that we're dotting all of our I's, crossing all of our T's, and making sure that we're making the best decision we possibly can, and hopefully it'll be the right one for a long time.
All right. All those in favor of narrowing the field as presented, say yes.
Yes. you know, we kind of already discussed what they probably will have a selection superintendent committee meeting the 18th. I'll be unavailable the first part of next week. I'll be in Louisiana, but when I get back on the 18th, we'll look at drafting final interview questions. We've already had quite a bit of discussion on what those look like. It's anticipated that, and Bob or Adam, correct me if this is different from what we said, but it's anticipated that there will be much fewer questions, will be much more specific and require a longer response. So, you know, one of the questions might be, talk about a difficult time you had with employment relations. And that's just one open-ended question, and that gives the candidate 10 or 15 minutes to answer that and walk us all the way through. This was the problem, this is how I solved it, this worked, this didn't. That's something for several different areas to really allow them to, you know, be able to fully talk about as much as they want on a particular topic. Toward that scenario, we'll also plan on having a community forum for the candidates where members of the community will be able to be present and ask questions of their own prior to the formal final interview of the board. So let's say we meet, you know, Wednesday, I'm just looking at my calendar, Wednesday the 24th, and Susan's at 7 o'clock. You know, at 6:30 there'll be a community forum where anyone can come and talk with her and ask any sort of questions. We'll come in as a full board at 7, sit down in the same way, ask the same questions that way, to keep with consistency. I think as far as timeline moving forward, we had originally talked about scheduling final interviews in the week of February, the week of April 22nd, which would be after our next board meeting. So that week of April 22nd, you know, maybe a Wednesday and a Thursday, or maybe we do them both all in one night, you know, that's to be determined, and we'll certainly get everyone's feedback on that. And then after those interviews occur, that week of April 29th would be the in-depth looking into references and doing site visits to their districts. You know, we talked about potentially on that Friday, May 3rd, getting as many board members as possible to do site visits, you know, 3 or 1 district, 4 the other, so everyone can go. And, you know, that will require some time and effort to figure out what it is we're looking for, see who we want to talk to there, kind of have a plan of approach for both of those. And then, you know, assuming that goes well, we would still have another week to enter into contract negotiations, which is another piece of the puzzle that the personnel committee will need to deal with, is crafting a contract to present to the full board for finalization on May 13th meeting, which is still the same timeline that we've worked off of from the beginning. So each step, there are about 3 or 4 left, each step takes about a week. We're giving ourselves about a week to do each step. So that's kind of where